Hello, Vikings fans. It's down to the next week. We're into week 6 for the Vikings. They're 5-0, just like we wanted, just like I said 5-0 last week. 5-0 going into the next game. Week 6 for us, week 7 for the NFL. Big matchup coming up. Before we get into it, I got to break down the last game. Again, thanks for tuning in. RabbitDad, at RabbitDad on Twitter, X. But yes, I am your host for Vikings Uncovered. Vikings Uncovered. Sorry, I guess I'm a little rusty after that fortnight of not seeing y'all. Anywho, here we go. Last game for the Vikings, week 5. They beat the Jets 23-17. And they did that same thing we did the last 2 weeks, where we got up, scored the first 17 points, and then it kind of fell apart a little bit later in the second half, and then they locked it down at the end with that clutch game-ending pick. So what are they going to do about that? Well, hopefully they've taken notes and realized that when they're getting way up ahead at the beginning of the game, they need to lock it down. And it's going to take, and I say it every single week on this show, it's the positional depth on the defense that's going to be the key to getting it done. Instead of having the same 11 or 12 guys out there 90% of the time, we've got, 18 guys, 19 guys who cycle in regularly and spell each other and keeping everybody fresh, so we don't have to worry about injuries as much and fatigue, and that there's always somebody else there to pick up the slack and keep it, straight and everything right. But going forward, they're going to need to keep lighten up the scoreboard in the first half, get us that lead, then let the defense do their thing, and then let the offense just try and maintain that lead as they go into the second half and throughout the second half. All right, let's break down that defense. Brian Flores, I don't care what it takes. Vikings need to lock him down. I don't care if you got to pay him the same money as Kevin O'Connell. Give him an extension right now. Lock in Brian Flores for as long as possible. I don't care if you're paying him more than the offensive line combined. Just do it. Brian Flores is an elite defensive mind in the NFL, and he's going to get opportunities to head coach again. It's going to happen. Might be this coming season or this next year. Could be the year after. I don't know, but it's going to happen. He's not going to just Vikings. Lock him in, please. Anywho, keys to the defensive success last week: disrupting the quarterback, keeping Aaron Rodgers on his toes, not letting him get comfortable in the pocket at all. The versatility of the players that can do multiple things, like I was saying last week. I think I mentioned Harrison Smith. You see him; he's a safety. He does coverage. He does run coverage. He does blitzing. He does all that stuff. Van Ginkel can do multiple things. Dallas Turner has the ability to play from the linebacker position or from the line and around the edges. Just the fact that there's so many players on the defense that can do so many different things at any time. You can feign one type of defensive play, like make it look like they're going to blitz and then have them back off, or you have somebody back off and then last second, as soon as the ball gets snapped, they're just rushing through that slot in the line and then knocking the quarterback in the butt. So last week 5, the last game, Vikings had another three sacks, 9 TFLs, 3 interceptions, knocked down 9 other passes. It was a great overall defensive game. If you take away the fact that we only won by 6, but hey, I don't care if we won by 1 or 101. It's all good. Vikings on the season, the defense is giving up 336 total yards over 5 games. That's 3.6 yards per carry, which is the second fewest in the NFL. On the other side of that, with the passing game, yes, we're still successful overall in the pass, not giving up a lot of touchdowns. But they're also giving up 337 passing yards per game. That's a lot. But I'm not worried about it because a lot of it is because we're getting up by so much in the first half that the other teams are forced to throw the ball. I think league leading 45 passes per game against the Vikings. That's a lot. And what that does is it keeps the clock, or it keeps the game in control of the Vikings, which is why we're able to succeed by giving up so many second half points and yardage and whatnot, because we're getting that big lead, and then we're giving up just enough for them to feel like they're back in it, but then just, like the Gilmore interception. Other highlights from the last game: 11 hits on the quarterback, 3 players with at least 2, 7 different players had at least 5 tackles. It's just another aspect of how the defense works so well, and how every single player can rely on having another player at their back, or can be at the other player's back and just pick up the slack if something breaks down in the coverage, or if a block comes in that's a surprise from around a corner or whatever. There's always another guy there, and everybody's got the ability to make it happen and lock it down. Individual players, Van Ginkel, that pick 6, that was pretty. It was kind of ugly, and it was a lot of luck, but it was pretty, and it was just great. I mean, who doesn't love an Aaron Rodgers pick 6? Honestly, especially here in Minnesota. Excuse me. We saw Pace come back. Ivan Pace Jr. came back. Only played 26 plays, so just under 40% of the snaps. But he had 6 tackles, 2 of them for loss, and hit the quarterback twice, and had a sack in only 26 plays. Dude is a monster. And now that he's back, and at this point, he's got to be back to 100%, because obviously nothing on the injury report for him. So, yeah, it's going to be huge. It's huge having him back, especially also since it looks like we don't have Blake Cashman this week. He had a turf toe injury flare up, and I know some people hear turf toe like, oh, that sounds like a whiny baby hurt. No, a turf toe is no freaking joke. Let me tell you, it is not. It just makes my toes cringe just thinking about it. You can think about a stub toe that doesn't stop hurting. It's probably one of the better ways to describe it, but it's not a joke. And yeah, it's going to keep him out this week, it looks like. And well, I don't know. We'll wait and see next week. We are in a short week, so we'll have to wait and see. Excuse me. Bynum had a pick and 2 pass defense. Harrison Smith had a sack. He had another 6 tackles. Grenard hit the quarterback a few times. I think it was 3. Stephon Gilmore with that game-winning interception at the end of the game. Nice job. The interesting thing, I'm going to really quick just jump into Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin. They are quietly having an amazing season on the outside covering wide receivers. They're giving up a combined 53 receiving yards per game between the 2 of them. That's awesome. If they're locking down and just not even giving the quarterback the thought to throw the ball at those outside receivers is such a key element. And we don't hear enough about it, because if the ball's not going there, the camera's not going there, the radio announcer ain't talking about it. It's just those little things that you notice, that you catch, that you hear about, that when you do, it's like, wow. The fact that the wide receivers on the outside are not even getting looks just shows how much Gilmore and Griffin are just excelling. I mean, Griffin, the potential he had coming out of college is showing up now after 5 years with the Vikings. Gilmore clearly still has it. Former Defensive Player of the Year still has it. I'm getting chills just thinking about how this defense is being so successful. All the pieces that came together for it. Oh, so awesome. Offensive side of the ball. We'll touch on a couple of things I heard from the more recent O'Connell press conference. One thing we touch on every week, and he touched on every week, is the fans. You guys, us. The atmosphere at the home games in the stadium is obnoxious in the best way possible. They talk about the 12th man in Seattle. Well, Minnesota's got their own 12th man, and it's US Bank Stadium, and everybody else cheering at home. The energy and the flow and the excitement from the fans is powering every single purple and gold player to the best effort they can give every single week, and I love it. It's so fun. Even just watching it on the television, you can still even feel it and see it. We talked about, obviously, the Vikings have a new player on the team. Cam Akers is back in the fold. Vikings made a trade for him last week, and we'll get a little more into that later in the video. And then O'Connell also was talking about, I mentioned it earlier, the versatility and the flexibility of the players and player groupings on different offensive and defensive schemes, and the way you got to keep changing it up, especially with coming in against a team like the upcoming Lions game. It's going to be a very big point of the perceived success that they're going to have on Sunday. Now, player notes from last week. Sam Darnold had his first not good game. Only connected on 14 of 31 passes, but like I was talking about in the last one, the Jets defense is good. It's very, very good. They only allowed him 179 yards, no touchdowns, one interception. Those guys, Toss Gardner and Reed, did exactly what they needed to do. They did it with getting a little handsy, and that's why there was a few penalties. There was at least a couple penalties just against Justin Jefferson that he drew from the handsy pass coverage, which it's a thing. A lot of teams do it in the NFL. Some teams like the Jets do it a little bit more. Interesting note is the Lions are also kind of that kind of team, so we'll see what happens. I mean, in the neutral site of London in the last game, there might have been a couple more calls if one team was a home team or whatever. I know, it's just, it happens. But now the Vikings at home, Lions coming in, handsy cornerbacks. There could be a couple extra passing interference penalties. Sorry. But we'll just have to wait and see. But like I say, yeah, Darnold, his first down game of the year, but it didn't matter. The Vikings still pulled it out. He did enough to keep it going. Running backs. First, we got to talk about Aaron Jones, the monkey, the big purple monkey in the room. He obviously left the last game early with a hip injury. He only had 7 carries, 29 yards, and caught one 24-yard pass. It sounds like he's going to suit up for the game against the Lions on Sunday. I think that's fine, but I also think that they're going to limit him, and that's part of the reason they brought in another running back. That and Ty Chandler, with his 14 carries for 30 yards, he had twice as many carries for basically the same yards as Aaron Jones. It's not looking good. I heard a stat the other day. Out of all the running backs with as many or more carries or touches, one or the other, I think it's carries. With as many carries as Ty Chandler, he ranks 42 out of 42 in yards after contact. It's not really good. It's actually quite bad. So it's not that he's going to be replaced with Akers coming in, but Akers is the perfect piece to put in there. If Chandler continues to struggle, we've got Akers, who already knows the plays. He already knows the scheme. He was here last year. He did it. And he's been okay. I think he has just like 3.9 yards per carry, and he scored twice this year with the Texans. But now he comes in here. It's similar fit. The running game is just as important here as it was for the Houston Texans. But like I said, he knows how the scheme works. He knows how the offense runs here. He's familiar with all that stuff. He knows most of the guys. I mean, the biggest difference is now he's got Sam Darnold under center, but that's not an issue because we've seen. But anyway, slice it. Cam Akers is going to eat into Chandler's usage eventually, if not right away. We'll see. Wide receivers last game. JJ, 92 yards on 6 catches. Addison, 36 yards on 3 catches. The only 2 wide receivers to even get a target against the Jets. And it's because, I mean, we didn't need to throw the ball around so much. I mean, Munt had a couple of targets, and he had 31 yards. But, 31 attempts, and they went to like some of running backs and wide receivers. Obviously, 22 of those targets were just to Jefferson and Addison. So that leaves the other 9 to spread apart from 3 or Aaron Jones, Chandler, Munt. But yes, it was a down week overall for the passing, obviously. Like I said, Munt had 2 catches on 2 targets, 31 yards. Oliver didn't see any targets. They're still about 50-50 on the snap share. Offensive line was great. Was good again. They did give up 4 sacks, but they did enough to obviously keep the offense flowing. Special teams, Reichert, 3 for 3 of 2 for 2. As long as he keeps doing that, it's all good. I'm not going to complain about it. I don't even need to touch on it anymore. Ryan Wright still punting the ball, doing his thing successfully. 46.5 yards per punt. Nothing really else to talk about special teams. We had, I think, Powell returned 1 punt for like 9 yards. It's just, if something special happens on special teams, it's going to be very special and very unexpected. And that's fine with me. Powell has the ability to break something open if he gets a seam. I'd like to think Gaskin does too, but Gaskin's pretty much relegated to kick returns. And that's even if he's on the 53 man. Now with Akers coming in, I didn't catch who they moved out to the practice squad or cut. I didn't see anything pop up on my feed directly, so I'm guessing somebody just got moved to the practice squad. And it basically also spells the end of any rushing upside for Myles Gaskin going forward, which is unfortunate. I like him. I think he's a very talented guy. Had some nice days in Miami, but too many chefs in the kitchen. There's an analogy for you. So that's the Vikings from last week. Now we'll talk about the Lions, who are coming to town. We're in town, ready to face off against the Vikings. This will be the 126th meeting between the Lions and the Vikings. I didn't check. I know the Vikings have won the majority of the games, and they've also won 9 of the last 13, but they've also lost the last 3. So does the streak continue, or does the trend come back? We'll get to that in a bit. But last week, the Lions absolutely obliterated the Dallas Cowboys 47-9. Now, that's a product of 2 things. 1, the Lions have a very strong offense. And 2, the Cowboys are just bad. And I don't want to crap on them any more than I have to. But the real problem over there, that's Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones, pretending to be an NFL general manager. They got the personnel and everything. But I'm not going to get any more to that. That's for the Cowboys Uncovered guys to do. But yeah, the Lions offense is crazy good. Jared Goff, he's having a good year. He just threw for 313 yards on 18 receptions. Yeah, 18 for 25, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns. The week after he went, was it 18 of 18 or 19 of 19, something like that? Like perfect. Like he's heating up. He's coming into his own, and he's really good at indoor stadiums. So could be another big game for him. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be the biggest threat for the Vikings this week. He is an elite receiver on a high octane passing offense. Last week he caught all 4 of his passes, 37 yards. They were up so much he didn't have to get any more work. That was just the thing. Not likely going to happen this week. But he's going to be playing majority out of the slot, which means he's going to draw coverage from Byron Murphy, who has allowed the most receptions and receiving yards, or the most receptions and passing yards of any cornerback in the NFL. If you got Amon-Ra St. Brown in fantasy, you're going to feast this week. Williams, deep play threat. He turned 3 catches into 76 yards. He's always got that big deep play threat. I mean, his first ever catch in the NFL was against the Vikings, and it was for 41 yards and a touchdown. It was also his only catch in his rookie season. But, injuries do that. And he finally seems like he's come around to the promise of that top 10 NFL draft pick he was a few years ago. So he's somebody they got to watch out for, but he's going to be playing from the outsides. He probably does have a step speed-wise on Shaq Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. But if he doesn't have time, or if Goff doesn't have time to get the ball to him, he's not going to be able to separate downfield and get open and turn a 20-yard pass into a 60-yard touchdown or something. I'm not saying it won't happen, because it absolutely could. But I think the likelihood of it is not good. Not very likely at all. The running game for the Lions is also dangerous. You got the 2-headed monster, Dave Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs. They're both doing very well, and they're both going to struggle this week against the Vikings defense. We are third. No, yeah. We gave up I said it earlier, the fewest rushing yards on the season, second fewest rushing yards per game, or per carry. They're going to feed those two. They're going to get some yards, and one of them probably ends up falling into the end zone for a touchdown, but you don't know who. My guess would be Gibbs if he catches a screen pass and makes a defender miss. On the defensive side of the ball for the Lions, they've got, let's first talk about that. If you didn't watch that Aiden Hutchinson injury, don't. It's not pretty. I would not show it to my wife because I know she would not appreciate it. It was, very awful, very, very horrible thing. Wishing him the best of luck in a speedy recovery. A speedy, uneventful recovery. Just, get through it, come back. Aiden, all the love and healing from Minnesota, because he is one of the most dangerous defensive players in the NFL. At the time, going into the last game, he was leading the league in sacks. Dude's going to have a long, successful career. It's just one little bump in the road for him. But he's not the only guy on that defense worth noting. The Lions also have a strong overall defense, especially in the run game. They have only allowed 416 rushing yards, the third fewest in the NFL. But they have allowed 5 touchdowns, which is right in the 5 rushing touchdowns, which is right in the middle. Last week, the defense had 3 interceptions. They had 4 sacks. They hit the quarterback. They hit Dak 11 times. I should say, hit Dak and Cooper Rush combined 11 times. That's how bad it was. They just had to swap out the starters on both sides of the ball. But other players to worry about on the Lions defense. Branch is looking good this year. He had 2 picks last week. He's one of their safeties. He's another versatile guy. He'll come up and blitz. He'll stay back and cover. He's a great tackler. Alan McNeil, 2 sacks last week. He's a disruptive force. He's going to try and get through that offensive line of the Vikings, which, again, still healthy, still all playing every play. So it's going to be tough for that defensive line of the Lions or that rush, the rush, the blitz, the front seven to get a lot done behind the line of scrimmage. But a guy like Alan McNeil is going to get back there and maybe shake things up a little bit. Another guy I want to highlight from the Lions, Terry Arnold, rookie cornerback. Hasn't really done a lot yet this year. But, I mean, his first game of the season, first game of his career, he had 8 tackles. He's had 18 tackles on the year, 17 of which are solo tackles. He's a good tackler. He's a guy that I was looking at in coming into the NFL draft, like, oh gosh, could the Vikings possibly land him? And could have, but then we moved up to get Dallas Turner, and I'm like, sorry, Terry Arnold, go play somewhere else. No disrespect on him. He's good. He's got a lot of potential in the future. He's going to give the Vikings problems in years to come. But he could even give him problems this weekend. We'll see. And then one other guy I want to talk about is one of my favorite names to look for when I'm breaking down fantasy. Kindle Vildor. Some of you may have heard the name. He's been in the league for a few years, bounced around on a bunch of teams. He doesn't get a lot of play, but when he's on the field, the Vikings need to target him. He saw about 29% of the snaps last year. Darnold needs to find him every time he walks on the field, see who he's covering, and throw the ball to that guy. I don't care if it's Johnny Munt, Jordan Addison, if they decide to put an eligible lineman in there and go 5 yards on a post route or something and throw the ball. If that's where Vildor is, that's where you throw the ball. And I just realized I forgot to talk about T.J. Hawkinson. T.J. Hawkinson might play on Sunday. I prefer he not. And that's because of what I've said in the past videos. Don't need to rush him back. Team's doing well. Munt and Oliver are doing their thing. They're blocking. They're catching balls when they need to. They're splitting time. They're making everything on the offense is working. And I'm not saying Hawkinson's going to hurt that, but it's working that well. We don't need to rush him back. He doesn't need to rush back. The sooner he comes back, if he comes back early, there's a higher potential for injury. Plus, short week coming up. Vikings play on Thursday next week. So I say let Hawkinson sit one more week. Let him come in on Thursday, make his debut on prime time, and get it done then. So we've talked about the offense. We've talked about the defense. We've talked about players on both sides of the ball. Let's just get down to the brass tacks and to the betting portion. Vikings currently are favored by 1.5 points. Easy money. I'm taking that spread. Vikings on the money line. Vikings on the spread. The over-under 50.5. You could make the over-under 55.5, and I would take the over. This is going to be a high-scoring game. We could see something crazy like 45-42. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's on the high end. That's a little absurd, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. I'm thinking more along the lines of 33-37, somewhere around there. Like both teams to eclipse 30, I think. It's absolutely possible. Or maybe the Vikings just lock everything down and just totally boat race them like they did the Texans or the Niners a few weeks ago. Either way, high scoring game. I'm taking the over in the points. If I'm doing an anytime touchdown, it's got to be JJ. I don't particularly like the possibility of running game for either side when it comes to betting or fantasy. So I will be taking a look at some of those props in the morning or later today, and just to see if there's any unders I like on when it comes to rushing yards for anybody on either side of the ball. Because like we know, Vikings Fewest yards allowed on the ground this year. Lions third fewest. It's going to be a lot of air yards in this game, folks. We can see both quarterbacks go for over 350 yards, multiple scores. All right, so the fantasy outlook. Let's talk this. We'll do this. Try and do this quicker. Obviously, you're starting JJ. Obviously, you're starting Addison. You got Reichert. Start him. You got to keep going on him. If you use kickers on the Lions side of the ball, Amon-Ra, got to start him. Laporta, start him. If you have Montgomery or Gibbs, you probably have to start him. I don't really like either one. I think you're hoping for a touchdown from either one of them, because I could see both of them ending up with like 40, 50 yards less, maybe. Like I could see under 50 yards total for both of them. One of them gets into the end zone, make it a good fantasy day. Dart throws. Darnold, yeah. Goff, yeah. There you definitely could. I guess they're not really dart throws. They're like, if you're trying to hit a dartboard with a cannonball, that kind of dart throw. Yeah, the running backs, I don't want to start any of the Vikings running backs in fantasy. Not any of them. Because like if Aaron Jones plays, I don't see him getting more than half the touches. And then they sprinkle in other running back touches to Chandler, to Akers. I don't like Williams at all. Jameson Williams. Obviously, you could catch that one big pass for a touchdown. It makes your fantasy day. And also, the kicker, Bates, has been pretty solid. Pretty much anybody else, I'm just not even worrying about. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in to Vikings Uncovered with me, RabbitDad. Welcome to my new purple attire, purple and gold decor. I had to show it off. But yes, thanks again for checking in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the comments. I do read them. I appreciate the worry that I see in some of those comments. I mean, we're Vikings fans. We've seen more than enough trepidation, more than enough heartbreaking moments. But just when you think of those, go back and think of Adrian Peterson when he broke the rushing record, single game rushing record as a rookie, or think about the Minneapolis Miracle. Just put those memories in your head. Think about that Greg Lewis touchdown catch against the Niners a few years ago. Anywho. But yes, I do read your comments. I appreciate the time you spend with me. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the time with you and give you all my information and knowledge. Until next time, keep cheering on. Vikings 6-0. Let's do it. Skol.